Hi, I am Pratim Ranjan Bose, and you are watching Podcast with Pratim, presented by Iravati Research and Communication Center, or IRCC. In this episode, we will discuss about the Agnipath short service scheme in Indian Armed Forces and the controversy about it. I have with me retired Brigadier Niladri Shankar Mukherjee. He is the Secretary and Executive Director of the Kolkata-based think tank CENERS-K, which has known interests in security. Welcome to my show, sir.
Thank you, sir.
As you are aware, the short service scheme was launched in June 2022. Under the scheme, soldiers aged between 17 to 21 years are recruited for 4 years at a high salary. This recruitment is done twice a year, and it started probably from 2022, which we will know from later on. At the end of the program, 25% of the Agniveers are inducted in the forces. The rest, in their early 20s, are supposed to join the skilled labor force of the country with an average separation benefit of over rupees 11 lakh. There are many provisions for their future employment in central armed forces, or state police, etc. Also training, retraining, there are a lot of other things. There were three major benefits of this scheme. One was reducing the headcount of the armed forces and focus on use of technology. That has been the need of the modern warfare. Second was to bring down the average age of the army, which was around in mid-30s to mid-20s, thereby increasing the agility of the security apparatus. Also, the younger force is generally more compatible with technology. So that was an advantage. More critically, reduce the payout on salaries and pensions over time, thereby creating fiscal space for technology adoption. Currently, 53% of defense budget is spent on pension and salaries. Another 20% goes to revenue expenditure, that is buying ration, clothing, regular ammunition, and maintenance, etc. That is a regular expenditure. Only a quarter of the defense budget is spent on buying new equipment. And that's a very alarming situation because there is a technology gap in the forces. Now, any reform has repercussions. This reform was thought about for decades, particularly post-Kargil War. There were many committees which the brigadier can tell more in detail. And it has come after quite a few decades. It has finally been implemented. So this is a major reform, and the reform has a repercussion in a country where people die for sarkari nokri. And in a state like Bihar, which produces maximum babies without creating due economic activity, this has reportedly become an election issue during the recently concluded Lok Sabha election. Opposition, in their zest to acquire power, fueled it. They did not win, but the issue remains. We are told that the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, who is an important coalition partner of the Narendra Modi government, which has just taken oaths a week ago, wanted some changes in the scheme. He, of course, said that he wants Agnipath to be retained. We do not know what changes Mr. Kumar had asked for, but there are newspaper reports about an unofficial survey and suggestions made by the armed forces and various changes proposed thereon. I mean, these changes are of wide-ranging. That is what is coming out in the media. It's from increasing the duration of Agnipath, that is from 4 years to, I think, that 7 to 8 years, enhancing the absorption rate from 25% to 50%, and many other things. With that, let me go to Brigadier. Sir, what is this unofficial survey and report all about? I have never heard that forces operate in this unofficial fashion. They generally, so far as that was my presumption, or that is what I grew up knowing, that they are very official in their approach. And it is said that there is unhealthy competition among Agniveers, which is affecting culture of the forces. Now, competition, I thought, is always good. But how true are these feedbacks? What is the and why it is coming to the media? What is the experience so far with Agnipath? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, let me tell the viewers that you have actually put the whole thing in perspective. Firstly, I want to tell your viewers that this feedback which is coming from the political parties, as well as many analysts who, before and after the election, have been harping on the fact that the Agniveer scheme needs to be reviewed and the anomalies which they have been parroting for quite some time should be removed. Now, personally, if you ask me, I can categorically say, as per my research, that this is all fake news. Why do I call it fake news? There has been no official recommendation or official committee which is yet to go into this aspect of reviewing the Agniveer scheme. As you rightly said, the scheme was launched in June 2022 with 46,000 vacancies for the army.
Sir, just stopping you for a minute, sir. You are saying
Yes.
there is no official committee to review the scheme.
You are absolutely right.
Okay.
There is no official committee which has been constituted to review this scheme. And neither is the present dispensation going to do it for the time being. Because let me put it succinctly. Firstly, any scheme, for that matter, whatever is happening on the ground can only be seen after the first batch passes the 4-year tenure and then are released into the civil stream, and a rehabilitation scheme which has already been enunciated, that is put into effect. It is only then that you will be able to, from the ground, get a detailed analysis and feedback as to whether the scheme was successful or otherwise. It is only then that any government worth its salt which has taken a major decision of this nature, that they can review the entire thing. They cannot mid-course certainly increase the intake from 25% to 1% or raise certain other issues which at this moment has not been thought of. Now, may I just also tell you that there is a group of nearly 85 commanding officers who are presently serving in the armed forces across units and regiments, and they form a WhatsApp group. Informally, they keep in touch, and they are mostly from one batch or a batch senior or junior who are presently commanding officers of infantry battalions. I was lucky enough to interact with one of them, and an intense interaction. And I asked him this question about the Agniveers, and he has a substantial number of them in his battalion. These are the few things that I asked him. I said, you've been watching the TV, you have been seeing the media, you have been reading in print that there has been a great talk of review of the Agniveer, that it was not a scheme which was absolutely well thought out, that there is a lot of heartburn in specifically the states of Bihar, Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, from where the majority of the recruitment always takes place and where joining the armed forces is a family legacy. And the effect of what it had been when the Agniveer scheme was announced with trains burning, etc. in the state of Bihar. Do you feel that now that the Agniveers are now serving with your units, do you think that, and what has been your feedback, and do you think they are not doing the, they are not worth their, whatever the scheme has thought for them? And this is what he told me. Firstly, he said, sir, we are very happy with the Agniveer scheme. We are not bothered as soldiers and commanding officers of what it is going to be as a political statement for one party or the other. We are looking at it purely from the perspective of, does this scheme help the armed forces? Right. And therefore, we feel that the advisory that has come to us from the top has been that these Agniveers during the tenure that they do with the army for these 3.5 years after training, they will not be used for sedentary duties. By sedentary duties, I mean, yes.
What is that?
Like, for instance, many a times, the higher headquarters and certain other institutions and organizations that the armed forces run, like the CSD canteens or certain other shops, and in cantonments, auditoriums and picture halls for the entertainment of troops, and many other institutions like this. A lot of milking is done because the troops do not, there is no establishment for these institutions. And the people who maintain and run.
So the sedentary duty is basically the sort of unskilled jobs for.
It is not only jobs, it is in the running of a cantonment, in peace stations and in field of various institutions, which are in a way attachments to the armed forces overall.
And the point here is that Agniveers are not for that, so they have to be in the core business.
Yes, even to the extent of, if you have to, organize a new firing range or something, a lot of working, as we call it in the army, the terminology is huge working is then involved in constructing this range or making another obstacle course of some such nature. The Agniveers are kept off this. They are now there for professional work. And therefore, the commanding officer feels that this is the first time with the unit, even in an insurgency environment, or when they are on the international border on the LAC or the LOC, they find themselves that they have adequate troops to man posts and to react to situations on the ground. Initially, they were so milked. Apart from the troops going for long courses, they were going on 60 days annual leave. They were also being milked by higher headquarters, wanting groups to run the institutions and other, shops and auditoriums and picture halls in these peace station cantonments. So this was one of the reasons that the commanding officers felt that they had adequate strength.
Sorry to interject. So the crux of the issue is that in the regular recruitment that happened so far, there was, the availability of the soldiers in core duties was lesser when compared to Agniveers. So Agniveers are practically helping you in the core job of the army. That is
absolutely, you have hit the nail on the head. The second aspect that he said is, from day one, the commanding officer told me that these Agniveer troops, although they are young in age, maybe just 18, 20 to 20, 21, but they know from day one they are being assessed. And therefore, on the ground, their performance, their dress, their turnout, the way they stand and conduct their duties at their station of duty is far more superior to the normal other troops of their battalions. They are beating the other troops hands down while they are conducting obstacle training, firing on the range, and other professional, training in the battalion. And therefore, there has been a point, because this is, it is definitely within them to understand that while they are being assessed on a daily basis, their performance is the only thing that will get them a permanent, eventually a permanent intake after they conclude their 4 years. So this is the second aspect which the commanding officer is absolutely thrilled about. And the third aspect
is the question, sir. Here is a question, because that is what was said, is that, such a competition is not culture of army. Someone said.
Absolutely not, sir. Having served 35 years in the army, let me tell you, this is viewed, in fact, it is a healthy competition. And it is a competition which is much respected within the battalion when an outstanding youngster, good in sports, good in professional activities, is able to excel himself. He's the cynosure of all eyes. The third thing which the commanding officer told me, that the terms and conditions of this Agniveer is they are entitled to only 30 days leave. But mark you, Mr. Bose, the normal earlier intakes and even now the people who are permanently there in the armed forces get 60 days leave. Apart from that, if the Jawan is getting his 60 days leave and 14 days casual leave in addition, and then he might get medical leave, and then there is a course that he goes on to attend for 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Can you imagine the time that he is out of the unit? In this case, the Agniveers has been allowed only 30 days entitlement of leave. That gives him a huge amount of 11 months that he is there in the unit. And again, the commanding officer feels that now, in spite of the fact that the battalion strength technically is supposed to be 800 to 1,000 men, he used to hardly have 400 to 300 people on the ground at any one time, even when he was in field or in peace. The situation is totally reversed now, with these Agniveers being there, available to him at all time, ready to respond in quick time, and doing an excellent job. So this was the third thing that he told me. Finally, I asked him another question. I said, has there been a feedback of any these Agniveers always being absolutely, should I say, on the ground while they are performing? How can I put it? I mean, are they insecure? Do they feel do they show this sense of insecurity? According to him, there was none. So this is what I want to say insofar as the Agniveer scheme is concerned. I still feel that because of the high, we are a poor country. We have a huge population. There is joblessness. Everybody understands that. And the armed forces is not a manufacturing concern. It does not, like the railways or other PSUs, it cannot give back profits. It cannot run it. And the pensions, we must realize this. And the pension bill is, you put it very succinctly at the earlier stage, the pension bill is ballooning. Therefore, you had to look at a scheme which addressed two. One, the security aspects of the armed forces should not be in any way reduced. In fact, it can be enhanced. And the second is, can you save some money? And if everybody clamors that why does it have to be the armed forces from where the money has to be saved, one must realize, I have been part of the armed forces myself, that the armed forces by themselves are a destructive force. They are not a manufacturing force. They are not going to manufacture things and give the nation a profit. So therefore, the money that is now going into this ballooning pension bill that is coming through has to be looked at very rationally. Any government would do that. And if in the course of restricting this pension layout that is going on, if they can still address the security concerns with a vibrant, younger, and much more fitter army, then I think Agniveer is an absolute success. However, I still maintain, having been out of the armed forces for quite some time and only listening to all this and hearing all this as a researcher and an analyst, I would still feel, Mr. Bose, that the entire scheme must at least for the first two batches run through and let the complete thing come into the open of how these Agniveers, when they come into the civilian stream, are absorbed. 10% are already reserved in the Coast Guard. All the paramilitary forces are supposed to have certain reservations. The Railway Protection Force is going to give them an advantage. They are supposed to be getting skill certificates. If they are class 10 pass, they'll get a class 12 certificate when they leave. They get the 11.5 lakh amount of severance cash which they have. They can set up industries. There is a host of things that the government has outlined for them. And I feel that these younger generation of boys who could well have been officers, mind you, with the educational background, they would do a wonderful job. So all these analysts and fearmongers who keep on saying that they'll turn into Maoists and Naxalites and with the gun become, absolutely criminals and all that, I do not know. They do a disservice to the...
This is, I fully agree with you. This is fear mongering because when the Agniveer was not there, India had the severe Naxalite problem. The left-wing extremism took place. That was in the 90s. In the 90s, we saw the peak of extremism, all kinds of extremism, whether left-wing, right-wing, whatever. So there was no Agniveer in those days. So that is...
Absolutely.
So that is purely a nonsense.
Yes, this is bizarre. And mind you, most of the veterans, most of all of us are...
But sir, I have a question here, sir.
Please.
And I'm just interjecting, but this is something new we are seeing. This kind of who are running this, army
Campaign.
army officers having their own WhatsApp group is one thing. Okay, they are discussing their professional things. I, as an outsider, is not supposed to know that. And generally, we found army maintains a lot of secrecy. But here, how come you see the newspaper reports? These all are quoted by some official or someone. So my question is here: we know that the regular recruitment, whether it is in army, whether it is in railways, there were a lot of malpractices involved. In Bihar, was mushroomed with coaching centers for army recruitment. And do you think that a section of army officers, both retired and present, are involved in this fear mongering and for a vested interest?
Let me put it this way, Mr. Bose. I will not venture so far as to say that the veterans are unnecessarily fear-mongering or coming out with bizarre statements of whether the security concerns are being diluted by this Agniveer scheme or not. I have another look at this entire thing which you have asked. My personal opinion is that anyone in this country, when they find, let's take the case of an army family where the son is wanting to join. If the father is an officer, wants to become an officer. If the father has been a JCO or a Jawan, he still wants to join, become an officer. If he does not have the requisite kind of, should I say, educational qualification or can qualify for the, officer services, he would like to join the army. And he feels even his prestige and his family legacy stands enhanced even if he joins a Jawan, because it's a great respect in all pockets of our country for an army Jawan. And therefore, the parent who is a veteran, he feels insecure that his son possibly gets selected. And therefore, after 4 years, he might not get retained because the competition is so fierce. It is this insecurity of his which he is projecting. It is this emotional outpouring which has got no analytical, should I say, support, that he is then adding certain things which he feels can be put as a tag to reducing the, profile of this Agniveer scheme. I personally feel the veterans are always thinking of them, that if a Jawan is very secure in his mind that his family will be taken care of, that he will get a pension, he will be better performing. I do not know how you can come to that conclusion. There has been no serious studies of that nature. Can you say that a short service commissioned officer or an emergency commissioned officer who joined post 62 did not give his heart and soul and his life for the armed forces? He did. The short service commission of the Indian Armed Forces has been a success story. The same short service
globally, short service is a scheme of things globally. And in a way, it's good. I mean, there are many parents who are now afraid to send their children to armed forces. But if it is a short service, okay, fine, he will come back.
Not only that, Mr. Bose, let me tell you the short service commission story. There have been hundreds and hundreds of short service commissioned officers who are, when they join, young. Maybe they have not been able to qualify for the regular stream of the National Defence Academy or other entries, but they've gone through the short service commission. But yet, it is not a diluted way of intake. The Service Selection Board is a very stringent obstacle to pass. And yet, having done that, when they have gone out of the army or taken premature retirement, or even when as a short service commissioned officer, they are
army, I don't think that, army is not another job. So I don't think army can
pay money and to make sure that you make a living. That is not what the armed forces is all about. I wanted to say that hundreds have become lieutenant generals. Hundreds have appeared and gone out of the army, appeared for the civil services, become chief secretaries of states in the IAS, have done well as ambassadors in the foreign service. So it is something which we have to look forward to when the Agniveers finish their 4-year tenure. And I'm definitely sure the
So
government
you
will
are
be watching
saying,
this.
so you are essentially saying that we cannot talk about a scheme unless at least the first batch is out.
I am totally there, Mr. Bose, with you on this. I am at this moment not making a commitment to say that it is a very successful scheme. That would be wrong for an analytic answer.
Because you don't
For
know
an
the product. You don't know the product.
Yes, I have to look at the feedback which I am getting from the ground by my interaction with commanding officers who are commanding these Agniveers at the moment. And I can only say, I have also the same opinion as many veterans that maybe the intake will be raised to 50%. Maybe there will be certain other, support things which will be given to people who will severe, maybe canteen services will be provided, maybe medical. That is all secondary. At this moment, we must see how this scheme has been so far taken forward, how the scheme will rehabilitate the first 2 batches, which is going to be sometimes in the July of 2026. And once that happens, then analysts like you and me can then look at the entire, because within the matter of 6 months, we will know after a first batch has gone out as to how they have been rehabilitated.
Agreed.
And if they do wonderful well, if the other arm, if the forces and other PSUs and all are greatly happy with them, this is a scheme which will be, a model for the rest of the armies of the world.
Right. Sir, that takes me to the third question. So far as I understood from the direction of all this campaign, this is a very meticulous campaign that is going on. And it is to make Agniveers pensionable. Now, if that happens, the very purpose of the reform will be defeated. You will actually create more burden than you did in the past. Some quarters are asking for separation of pension from the defense budget. Now, that's merely a cosmetic change because in the end, money is money. So now it is a very self-defeating proposal, actually. So if it is only about creating permanent jobs, now in that case, army has to go back to the regular recruitment, but the intake should be down by 25% to 25% because you need only that many people in the days of technological warfare. In the days of drone, you don't need so many people. So shouldn't that impact the job market more than, I think that will impact the job market seriously. Over to you, sir.
You absolutely addressed it in a very, very proper manner, but let's just see the contrast of what is happening, Mr. Bose. What you are saying is absolutely right. That you have a lean and mean army, you reduce the, strength by percentages where you feel that these are only, people who do not mean the cutting edge
And
of
sir,
the army.
sir, this group is mentioning about the way they talk about vacancies in banks. So they are saying there is so much of vacancy in army. No, vacancy is a factor of technology. There were
you will be surprised, there is a school of thought, there is a huge lobby which feel that now that the terrorism has supposedly come to Doda and to Jammu area, that this entire area, which was absolutely having no terrorism, that it was earlier on saturated by the army themselves and that they had kept the situation under control, that these troops have been now taken out from here and put in the LAC against China in the East Ladakh. So there is more clamor for now more troops. So therefore, the Indian Army, the armed forces and the analysts like you and me, there are two different schools. One school feels that even now, as the 5th largest army in the world, or the 3rd largest to be very, in terms of, strength, 3rd largest army in the world, we still need to sort of, ramp up our employment, which I feel is absolutely uncalled for. I personally feel that at this juncture, the nation, while it is on a development spree, where you have to look at many other areas, and you just can't, you have to balance yourself on the ground. But yes, security is a concern.
You're already spending 2.5% of the budget for our forces. That's big.
Absolutely. And therefore, we have to now think of
and
ways
more than half of that is simply going to pension and salaries. So that is
absolutely. Modernization is taking a hit. Buying or adding new technologies is taking a hit. Your research in the armed forces is taking a hit. And therefore, if all this has to be addressed, there is that much of money only. You can't, and this lobby which keeps on harping about Agniveer, this, that, the other, this is purely political nitpicking and trying to get brownie points. I'm sure if they would have come to power, the opposition which is clamoring, or the 3.5 states which are clamoring for reviews and all that, they would exactly do the same thing that this government is doing. After all, governments are not meant to suppress. They are as keen to give jobs and pensions and everything to everyone else.
I remember you told, for viewers, Brigadier Mukherjee has been here on a couple of occasions. And I remember you did that Agniveer when the scheme was launched. I invited you into the podcast. And you gave us the reference of why it is important to have a young army. You said about 1971 war, one of the reasons probably because we won, because we had a young army at that very moment of time. Was it, sir?
Absolutely. To give you an example, and people who are watching this podcast would, those who know me, you will understand, sir, that I was one of those 71 veterans. I had about 3 to 4 years service at that point of time. My commanding officer had just 13 years of service. So, assuming that he would have joined the army at the age of 20, he would have been probably 33 or 34 years old, commanding an infantry battalion. And when I came of age, and by the time I came to my rank of a colonel to command an infantry battalion, there, my commanding officer had 13 years of service. I had 22 years of service. 9 years had been added. So by the time I was in my early 40s. Therefore, you have to admit that the army was aging. And this was going way ahead. In fact, after me...
We just cannot... We can do political nitpicking with many things, but not with army. I mean, I'm very clear about it.
Can you imagine a person who's in his late 40s climbing the hills of Kargil for an assault? I mean, you have to be, although many might do it, I'm still sure that the army is remarkably strong and active and physically fit. But then you have to have a younger army.
Age takes a toll. Age takes a toll, sir.
Youngsters are the ones. They are not cannon fodder. They are your winning horses. They are the ones which will win you the battle. And a time comes, when it will be their time, they should enjoy it, celebrate it, and deliver. I personally feel I am not against or for the Agniveer at the moment. It was a scheme which was years in planning. Many thousands of hours have gone into deciding it. Civilians as well as armed forces veterans and everybody has applied their mind. The government and the best of advisors have thought about it. It is a big scheme which had major repercussions and ripples all across the country. States burnt for days together. Trains were burnt. There was agitation on the streets because of our, family legacies of many states where there is a sort of a family history of generations joining the army. Yet
there was a whole ecosystem. There was a whole ecosystem of recruitment. Train and bar, that happens whenever you are changing anyway. But change is necessary. We know in 1991 we had reforms, so we are so comfortable today. So
today people are saying that out of the the 1991 reforms of Manmohan Singh, Rao, we are where we are today. Everybody
exactly the kind of poverty that I saw in my childhood has vanished. So, sir, just we don't have time. Just quickly, you said there is no committee, but you were also executive director of CENERS-K. So, have CENERS-K sent any recommendation or suggestion in this issue?
So you will be, I mean, let me be very candid. As a representative of CENERS-K and being a founder member, there is a division within amongst us also. Within the CENERS-K, we debate and argue this on nearly a daily basis while we see programs such as yours, or we see things being mentioned in the media. There are veterans who come out with many other points, and they have their own reasons to say that why is the armed forces always identified as people who have ballooning pensions and things like that, and whilst the government writes off lakhs of crores of rupees of the industrialists. While I debate with them that, look, that writing off is not actually writing off in banking terms. It is only a delayed thing. No bank can just scratch away his audit book.
So there is a debate going on in your circle. You are saying that. Absolutely. And you have taken a very right stand that you are neither against nor favor. You first have to see how it goes. And right at this moment, the nation should stop political nitpicking with a very critical reform that was thought about for decades. Am I right?
Absolutely, Mr. Bose.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Mr. Bose. Rightly, you have asked one question, that what has been the feedback from the ground. I thought I have conveyed that to you and your viewers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, sir. Kind of you, sir.